Matt in the back here. Hope you're having a good week. This episode is going to be a very interesting one. It's not going to be based on a certain news article or a review or a Halloween special. I've been noticing lately, and maybe you have too, that aren't movies feeling longer than they normally are? Have you gone and seen a movie and been like, wow, that was a pretty long movie? And the only thing I can come up with is it because of the rise of streaming? Has streaming, either Netflix, Amazon, HBO Max, Hulu, wherever you stream stuff, is it because of that? Are we getting used to binging an entire season of something in one weekend? That the studios are now saying that are making movies, that movie can be longer. People will sit down and watch it, no matter what. Have we come to that point? Yes, back in the day, it was very rare to see over a 2.5 hour to 3 hour movie. I mean, yes, you had the occasional almost 3 hours or 3 hour movie from maybe Titanic in 97, or in the early 2000s we would call Peter Jackson, the guy who made long movies. All three Lord of the Rings movies were, the first one was 2 minutes shy of 3 hours, the second one was only a minute shy of 3 hours, and the third one was over 3 hours and 20 minutes. And then he did King Kong right after that, which was also over 3 hours. So yes, you got the occasional 3 hour movie. But that was very rare. Very rare indeed. And yes, even the Harry Potter movies were all over 2 hours long. Some of them even over 2.5 hours. And yes, if you put together Deathly Hallows Part 1 and 2, that would have been over 4.5 hour movie. And yes, back in the golden age of Hollywood, if you want to say, yeah, you had, the epic movies like Gone with the Wind, Lawrence of Arabia, even The Godfather Part 2 was over 3 hours long. But like I said, those were rare. Those weren't the norm. You'd be lucky if once a year you get almost a 3 hour movie. Between over 2.5 and 3 hours. Yeah, sometimes you get the Academy Award nominated films, those epic dramas that are 2.5 hours, the occasional, yeah. But I've been noticing lately, we're getting over 2.5 hours, closer to 3 hour movies than ever before. Why? What's the reason? Is it because of streaming? I tend to think so. So let's see. Now I got a list of movies here, and I am going to look down once in a while just to, go through the list here. So going back to even 2017, we had It Chapter 1. That was 2.5 hours. Precisely 2 hours and 26 minutes. That was just Chapter 1, Part 1, if you will. And also in 2017, we had Blade Runner 2049. The Denis Villeneuve, Ryan Gosling, Harrison Ford, Jared Leto, Ana de Armas sequel to the original Blade Runner, 2 hours and 43 minutes. Also, then in 2018, we had the Luca Guadagnino film, Suspiria remake, with Dakota Johnson and Tilda Swinton, Mia Goth, Chloe Grace Moretz, and that movie was over 2.5 hours long. Then we go into 2019. 2019, we had 4 movies close to the 3-hour mark. Almost 3 hours. It Chapter 2, 2 hours and 49 minutes. Chapter 2. Now, I want you to know this, because the miniseries that came out in the 90s, that was 3 hours in total. The entire book in 3 hours. You add up It Chapter 1 and It Chapter 2, and you got over closer to a 6-hour movie. Way over 5 hours. That's a long movie. When you sit down and watch just part 1 and part 2 together. Also in 2019, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the Quentin Tarantino movie with Leonardo DiCaprio, Brad Pitt. That was 2 hours and 41 minutes. Also in 2019, Avengers Endgame, 3 hours. Now granted, you can let that one slide. It was the culmination of the first 3 phases of the MCU. It was like the finale that has been built up since 2008. So yeah, over 10 years, 11 years, a 3-hour movie makes sense. And then you had The Irishman, the Martin Scorsese film, with Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, and Joe Pesci. 3 hours and 29 minutes. So that's 4 movies in 1 year. Some of them over 3 hours. Some of them just not far away from 3 hours. 4 movies in 1 year. Now we don't say about 2020. 2020 was long enough. We didn't need any 3-hour movies for that year. 2021, you had movies like Dune, Part 1. 2 hours and 35 minutes. Part 1. You had No Time to Die, the final James Bond movie with Daniel Craig. 2 hours and 43 minutes. The longest James Bond movie ever so far. That same year, you had another Marvel movie, The Eternals. 2 hours and 37 minutes. And that was just the first movie. Not like it was a sequel or the third film in the trilogy. Just one movie. Those are all over 2.5 hours. Not 3 hours, but still, all 3 of them long movies. And now here we are in 2022. And this year we've already had the Batman. That was 4 minutes shy of 3 hours. We just had the Marilyn Monroe movie, Blonde. 2 hours and 46 minutes. We also already had Elvis this year. 2 hours and 43 minutes. And as of right now, Avatar 2 is supposed to be 3 hours long. And the Damien Chazelle movie, Babylon, is going to be 3 hours and 5 minutes. Now, those are all long movies. And like I said, right there, that's 5 movies already this year. And we don't know how long Black Panther is going to be yet. We don't know how long Black Adam's going to be. We don't know about those movies yet. They might be around those runtimes. So we're going to be looking at more than 5 movies this year, getting close to the 3-hour mark. Or hitting 3 hours. Now, I also want to bring up earlier this year, well, middle of this year, we had the 4th season of Stranger Things. And it was a 9-episode season. But guess what? Each episode was an hour and a half, close to an hour and a half long. That's the normal runtime for a feature film. And that was each episode. In fact, the final episode, episode 9, was 2.5 hours. 2.5 hours long. That's like putting on The Dark Knight. This guy's movie. Yeah, him. 2.5 hours for one episode. Guess what? I binged the first part when it came out during Memorial Weekend, all the way through, and then those final 2 episodes, I binged those 4th of July weekend. But man, think about how many hours. If each episode is an hour and a half long, for the first 7, or first 8, and then the final episode is 2.5 hours. That is a lot of runtime. Yes, even the Game of Thrones episodes. They had episodes over an hour long and an hour and a half long. I think the final season of Game of Thrones, each episode was over an hour, almost an hour and a half long. So once again, I'll ask you guys, have you noticed that movies are getting longer? And is it because of the streaming service? Or streaming now? Yes, the pandemic probably helped out a lot. We saw the boom in streaming because everyone was home. Everyone needed something to watch. So we're going to put this movie out on streaming. We're going to put this season out. This season. This season. And all we had to do was sit home and watch episode after episode after episode. Or people would go back and watch shows that they used to watch, but this time they would binge the entire series during the pandemic. I did. I went back and watched the entire season of Friday Night Lights. Not that I haven't done that before, but one thing I got through it a lot quicker during the pandemic is I had nothing else to do. So what do you think? Am I completely crazy? I mean, a guy who dresses up like a bat clearly has issues. But really, have you not noticed that movies are a lot of movies nowadays that are coming out are longer than your average run. Your average runtime for a movie, in case you don't know, is between 90 and 120 minutes. In retrospect, that's an hour 30 or 2 hours. Anywhere between those numbers. So when we're getting now movies that are more averaging out 2.5 hours to 3 hours, I once again ask you, is it because of the rise of streaming? I mean, yes, we used to get the occasional, almost 3-hour movie. But that was rare. I said maybe 1 a year. This year we should be looking at 5 by the end of the year, if not more. Well, right now we are at 5. If Avatar 2 is 3 hours, and if Babylon does end up being over 3 hours, 5 movies of this year will be closer to the 3-hour mark, or 3 hours. That's a lot of movies. But let me ask you. And by the way, we don't know about a few other movies coming out this year yet. Black Panther 2, Black Adam. Maybe some of the other Oscar-nominated potential movies. But like I said, let me know. Am I completely crazy? Or have you noticed that movies are longer than normal these days? And do you think it's because of streaming? Let me know in the comments below. I enjoy doing this podcast. Like I said, just talking about movie news. Sometimes I do like to pick a topic and go, let's explore this. It's interesting. Because it could really affect movies down the road. In terms of budget. Well, we're going to make almost a 3-hour movie. We got to decide how, what are we going to cut in terms of cost. Actors, production design, costumes, effects. Do we just want to turn this into a mini-series? Or, what do we want to do? So yeah, I think it's an interesting thing to look at.